Now, when you hear people talk about restructuring, they are saying, let's go back to where we are coming from. Akinrade was a member of the armed forces. He fought in the Civil War. At some point, he was Nigeria's chief of army staff. So, when we talk of restructuring, is the North ready for restructuring? Let's listen to Akinrade.
This morning, somebody posted the report of a meeting. Lee Kuan Yew was here. 65 days after he left, Gowon became head of state. And Gowon, when he was already 65 days in office, also called a meeting of the North, the West, the East, and the Midwest. They were all represented by very high caliber people. Babawolo was there, Nauru, Eyo, and the rest of them were there. If you see the report of that meeting, it is obvious that the North knew exactly what they wanted. And what has happened now is because we have put up this rent society, their successors now saw Nigeria as a milking cow. And that is why suddenly they developed this idea that they don't know what Nigeria should be like. They were all agreed that any of those regions can form its own itself into whatever they want. They can create states there, they can create whatever they want, but they have to do it. Second, they have to be able to account for themselves. That means they have to earn everything that they require, and they can develop anytime they like. And there was a major clause which says anyone who wants to opt out of that Nigeria is free to do so. The reports are there. And I just want us to know that it is this rent society, this oil and everything that came where people can eat without working is what informed this confusion that the Northerners are now putting to the table.
State Affairs with Edmondo Bilo is live.
Talking about pre-independence, the period 1959 witnessed the peak of agitation for independence in Nigeria. It was an era of robust national debate and expectations. During the time, the Willix Commission of Inquiry, set up in 1957 by the Secretary of State for Colonies, Alan Lennox Boyd, just submitted its report. You recall that until 1963, when the Midwest region was created, Nigeria had 3 regions: Western, Eastern, and Northern. Remember the question I'm trying to answer. How did we get to Aburi? So I'm trying to trace the conflicts of Nigerian federalism to create a background to Aburi, how we got to Aburi. During the Willix Commission, some decisions were reached. It was a commission headed by Sir Henry Willix. That commission looked into the complaints of marginalization by minority ethnic groups and their agitations for new states. Now, under the regional system, the Kensarowiwas, the Ijos, the Shekiris were complaining of the dominance of the major ethnic groups like the Igbo. The Western region controlled where you know as Bendel today, Edo and Delta. Port Harcourt, Calabar, Akwa Ibom were under the Eastern region. And the Igbo tribe was the dominant ethnic group. So those minority tribes were not comfortable with the majority Igbo. They were complaining of dominance, that the Igbos were dominating them. You could see why they did not back the Igbos during the war. They wanted to break away from that dominance. They wanted their own state. And that was why the Willix Commission of Inquiry was set up to look into the agitations of minorities. In the northern region, those in the Benue axis today, Plateau State, were not comfortable with the dominance of the Fulani. So they also wanted their own state. The Ts, the Jukuns, they were not comfortable with the dominance of the Hausa Fulani, so they wanted their own states too. They were agitating. That is why if you read about J.S. Tucker, the leader of the Middle Belt at that time, United Middle Belt Forum, there was the Thief Massacre. It was a fight for their own state. So the Willix Commission was set up to look into the complaints of marginalization by minority ethnic groups and the agitations for new states. The Commission recommended that a Bill of Rights to protect the fundamental human rights of the minorities be entrenched in the Constitution. But it stopped short of recommending the adjustment of the boundary between the northern and western regions. Why did he not recommend it? Why? Why did Britain refuse to break the borders? Why? Now let's read from a book. I want us to read from this book. It's a class of politics and power. Yes, this book, The House of Oduduwa Must Not Fall. You see the book? The House of Oduduwa Must Not Fall. Interesting book, classic. You should have this book in your library. If you're interested in this book, go to darabooks.com. You get a copy. I want to read from this book. It's a book written by Olaniwun Ajayi. Let's read from page 106. 106 to 107. Yes, 106. The boundaries were not adjusted when the Willix Commission submitted its report. Why? So let's read from page 105 of this book. It says, in the case of Nigeria, the existing regions were retained in spite of the annoying and unacceptable disparity in size, partly because the colonial officials working in the north, who foresaw the political advantage that would accrue to the northern region, were a very effective lobby in Whitehall, and partly, no doubt, because the British government felt that a Nigerian government controlled by conservative northern politicians would be more stable and favorable to its interest. I'm reading from the book, This House of Oduduwa Must Not Fall, written by Sir Olaniwun Ajayi of blessed memory. Olaniwun Ajayi says, little wonder therefore that northern Nigeria found itself from the very beginning of Nigerian self-government in the front burner of Nigeria's political power and control. It is therefore not surprising that the Caliphate seeks by all artifice and ingenious devices every means to hold fast to power in Nigeria. The author says, as it may be observed, the North took no part in the government of Nigeria until 1945, after the Legislative Council had been promoted. When they had joined the South, they took part in the Constitutional Review 1949 to 1950, where the northern leaders present emphatically asserted the intention of the North and made 3 demands which they asserted must be granted, otherwise they would secede from Nigeria. You know, it was the North that began to threaten that they wanted to leave Nigeria, not the South or the Eastern region. It was the North from day one. The North had continued to threaten, if you don't give us what we want, we will break away. And Britain kept giving them what they wanted. Olaniwan Ajayi says, first, the North demanded that there should be no alteration in the North-South boundary in favor of the South. You know, Awolowo was saying the North was too big. The North was too big. Why not break it up? And the North said, if you break it up, we will leave Nigeria. First, they demanded that there should be no alteration in the North-South boundary in favor of the South. Second demand was that the number of representatives to the House of Representatives should be on the basis of population, knowing that, although there had been no census, the British officials had accorded to them more than 50% of the population of Nigeria. Are you getting this point? Are you with me? I'm reading from this book, Sir Olaniwan Ajayi's book. This house of Oduduwa must not fall. Listen to this point again. Second demand was that the number of representatives to the House of Representatives should be on the basis of population, knowing that although there had been no census, the British officials had accorded to the North more than 50% of the population of Nigeria without census. The third demand was that revenue sharing should be on population basis, and that of the North should be 50%. After a long debate, it was agreed that demands 1 and 3 should be left to the governor to handle. When the North remained adamant, it was agreed that their second demand should be granted. Olaniwan Ajayi said, since then, the North has maintained its dominance over the whole country, in spite of the fact that there has been no generally acceptable census figure in the whole country. As a result, the North has the highest number of states in Nigeria. It has the highest number of local governments, and by implication, the highest allocation in the national revenue sharing. All attempts by the government to have genuine, authentic, and acceptable national identification cards have been thwarted. The Hausa Fulani love power, and they do not joke with it. You see, if you read this book, Olaniwan Ajayi wrote 2 classical works. One is Nigeria, Africa's Failed Asset. That book is on udarabooks.com. The book is super. And this is a follow-up on that book. Did I say 2? He wrote 3 books. 3 quality works on Nigerian history before he died. We have 2 of them on udarabooks.com. And you can also get this book by contacting Udara Books on WhatsApp. Get our WhatsApp numbers. They are on this screen. I recommend this book to you. This House of Oduduwa must not fall. And I hope to send a copy of this book to President Bola Tinubu. That is if he doesn't have a copy yet. The president should have a copy of this book. He should have a copy of this book. And you should have a copy of this book. I've just read from Olaniwan Ajayi's book, This House of Oduduwa Must Not Fall. So go on udarabooks.com and get a copy. You can also get a copy by contacting us on WhatsApp. Udara Book and State Affairs are linked. They are together. Udara Books is State Affairs bookstore. State Affairs is Udara Books' program on history, politics, and power. So they are linked. I have read from On a Darkling Plain, an account of the Nigerian Civil War, by Ken Saro-Wiwa. I have read From This House of Oduduwa Must Not Fall by Olaniwun Ajayi. You see the books we have on this table. It's a class of books. It's a class of books. A class of interviews. How did we get to Aburi? So I'm highlighting the issues that led to the discussion in Aburi. Now, this question of border adjustment would later heat up the polity after independence, when the Northern People's Congress, MPC, MPC was in charge of the federal government. Then, because they wanted to punish Awolowo for daring them, decided to create from the Western region a Midwest region. Awolowo has been saying, no, the North is too big. That is why they are dominating parliament. That's why they are controlling national revenue. To punish Awolowo, they decided to break Awolowo's region with federal power. By this time, Awolowo had already been sent to prison. We'll get to that point. These are the issues that led to the Civil War. Because if you don't follow the history, you will just say, oh, the Igbos just wanted to fight. No. There were issues. It kept degenerating. We were not resolving the conflict. Awolowo had been sent to prison, and his region was broken. So they now created another region known as the Midwest region from the Western region. So Nigeria became a 4-region country. Preceding the submission of Willix report was the 1958 Constitutional Conference. It was the last conference before Nigeria got her independence in 1960. Before the 1958 conference was the 1957 London Conference, where it was agreed that the Western and Eastern regions be granted self-government. I've made that point before. The conference also created the office of the Prime Minister of the Federation. But it was in the 1958 conference that the decision to grant Nigeria independence on the 1st of October was taken. It was not long after independence that the center began to crack. The action group witnessed internal crisis, and that crisis led to the imprisonment of Obafemi Awolowo. The direction Nigeria would go was seen in the Kanu riots of 1953. Eastern and Western region parliamentarians in the 1953 motion for independence debate wanted self-government for Nigeria in 1956. Nigeria was supposed to have gotten her independence before Ghana. Ghana got her independence in 1957. So the Eastern region and the Western region were ready for independence by 1956. And they brought that motion to the parliament in 1953. It was a motion that was moved by Anthony Enahoro of the Action Group. The North, led by Ahmadu Bello, in a counter motion, replaced 1956 with the phrase, as soon as practicable.